now introducing Brad Nikolic, and he'll be talking about improving operational performance and workforce capacity through leadership.
Thank you very much, Eob, and good day, everyone. Good afternoon. Hope you're having a good time so far and getting lots of out of this summit. My topic is going to talk about improving operational performance and workforce capacity through leadership. And it's actually one thing that can really relate to that the appropriate leadership approach results in improvements of operational performance and workforce capacity. And this comes from personal experience, as well as my educational background, having completed a Ph.D. in Organisational Behaviour. I'll touch on that a bit later as well. I would argue that it's fair to say that the pandemic that we recently had has unleashed a global experiment among businesses in terms of keeping up productivity and performance while managing a remote workforce. And one of the complex questions that a lot of business leaders had to face is how to identify what really drives employees and their productivity to increase performance in the workplace without having the convenience, having them all in one place, without the convenience of proximity. Now, I recall my own experience, and that came from a time when lockdown was at its peak period here in Melbourne, Victoria. I reside in Melbourne. And it was my manager's leadership approach, not the managerial style, but the leadership approach that was really inspiring at the time and kept me and my colleagues on track, motivated, disciplined, and more importantly, feel connected with the workplace and us as a team in particular. So what I mean by that, it was not only the words, but it was more so the actions that were aligned to those words that my manager was conversing with us about opportunities, about everyday things. Doesn't matter. It was all in line with the words. Actions were in line with the words. We certainly had the help of technology as well. I don't want to disregard that. And technology certainly improved operational aspects of our work. But it was really the leadership approach that led to improved operational performance and actually let us perform as a team. Now, I'm pretty sure we all came across leadership books, workshops, podcasts. My approach is a bit different, and you might be wondering what makes me so different than anyone else. What makes me different is that I like to provide my clients with actionable tools, really hands-on things that strip down to the core essence of what leadership is and how that can be implemented in order to achieve organizational performance and help people to perform their best. Now, we'll be together for the next, let's say, 15 to 20 minutes. And the typical attention span, and I'm talking from experience with having been a lecturer at university, a typical attention span is roughly 10 minutes. And I really want to make it worth your while within the 10 minutes that we have together. Now, to give you a bit of background about myself as to why I am where I am today and what my fascination is with human nature. My professional background is in business development and strategy advisory, where I look at clients and their operational environment and help them through certain initiatives to get to change and improve, adapt to the new way of working that we're facing in this contemporary world. My professional career is on that side of things, whereas my academic career, I looked into leadership dynamics and how that impacts actually on employee attitudes and in turn their job performance. So again, I looked in research and did a few conferences and also publications where I spoke about leadership characteristics, in particular authentic leadership and ethical leadership, how that can improve the overall operational performance of businesses, small and large. In addition to that, I've got a background in professional sports, and there it is very important to understand the importance of leadership, but also the structured approach and the strategic approach to performance itself. So I think you will be in good hands over the next 10 minutes here. Now, let me start with saying that achieving profitability and competitive advantage in the workplace is a no-brainer. Yeah, it's as fundamental as ever. And it's all about improving performance. Yeah. One of the most referred to transformation initiatives over the last, let's say, last year and a half or two that gained exceptional attention is digital transformation. And I really dislike the term digital transformation because it has become such a buzzword. It has a very bland meaning these days. No doubt, investing in technology is a very big deal for any size of business. Yeah, but introducing cutting edge technology to reduce costs, improve security, boosting productivity, etc., it's not a one size fits all formula for success. If you want to succeed as a business in the modern day world, it's about preparing your workforce to cope with these changes that we're facing and really having them understand what technology can actually do for them. Yeah. Successful companies have realized that ultimately the greatest enablers or the greatest constraints to sort of have the balance there. It's not a technology, it's not markets, not competitors or products, it's their people. And therefore, business leaders need to pay attention to the human factor of business transformation more thoughtfully and how that relates to drive a culture of performance there. Yeah. Now, again, advancement technologies, it's not using technology for technology's sake. I just want to reiterate that. It's more about how do I align the tools that I have at hand that are fit for my strategic purpose. By that I mean, to give you an example from some of the client engagements that I had, collaboration tools. Collaboration tools, we know collaboration tools, Microsoft Teams, Slack, Google Chats, and so forth and so forth. It's about what the business wants to achieve with that. Does a business want to be internally more efficient in terms of sending messages across different departments? Does the organization want to engage with their end clients more effectively and make an onboarding process for a client easier? I'm thinking about financial services. Or do we need to have communication in law firms, for example? If we're at court, we have a case, we need access to information. So again, you can see here the tools that foster operational efficiency and operational performance help us to make tasks more easier. But again, it comes down to the application and the usage of these tools, and it is the human factor. And that's why I mean, ultimately, it's not an organization's culture that forms the foundation of its, ultimately it's organizational culture that forms the foundation of digital transformation. I put a big emphasis on culture because oftentimes we misunderstand what culture really means in the widest sense in an organizational setting. We know what culture means when we look at different countries, when we go travel, etc. But what does it really mean from an organizational perspective, and why is it so important for us to be able to perform effectively and efficiently in the market? Well, culture, we can recognize culture of different companies through the logos, through their colors, dress codes, and the like. Yeah, this is just a very, very minor aspect of culture. More importantly, when we peel back the layers of culture, we get an understanding as to why people organized to form either a for-profit or a non-for-profit business. So when you assess a culture within an organization, ask the question, why are you in business beyond either making money for profit or making money not for profit to have it for a greater cause? Why would people like to join your business? What is the purpose, the values and the behaviors? What are cumulative traits of people of your business? So having an understanding of why, we can then talk about now what we're going to do in terms of performance. And especially when we look at a leadership of an organization, culture is driven from the top. It's usually one or two founding fathers that have a vision in mind, and they slowly build a group of people around them that will help them to achieve the vision. And that, in its essence, is leadership in itself. Yeah. So leadership is driven from the top. It could be argued that we need to have a leadership bottom-up approach. I've heard it a few times. People are asking me, what about listening to employees? Yes, it's equally important, but at the end of the day, you need to have a leading vision in order to achieve your goal. I like to compare it with steering a ship. If we wouldn't have the captain who exactly knows where to steer the ship, and in challenging times when there is rough seas, doesn't put his foot down and actually directs the ship in a certain way and gives orders, guess what? The ship would either be anywhere in the middle of the ocean without direction, or it would sink. So that's why the emphasis is really leading from the top. So leadership is key and a vital factor of organizational effectiveness at all levels. Corporate objectives such as productivity, customer satisfaction, driving innovation, being profitable, all of that stems from the top. But be careful. Don't use leadership and management interchangeably. We often do, but what I've experienced working with clients and also through my research is that a lot of senior executives are excellent managers. They do an excellent job at getting tasks done, focusing on the outcomes, but they just don't have the skills of leadership. Leadership is something that inspires people. Leadership is something that gets people engaged. Leadership is something that captures people's attention, desire to work towards a vision for many different purposes. And there are core aspects of leadership. There's various definitions of leadership, and I've come across throughout my research. I was actually writing my PhD. I think I came across 200 odd definitions of leadership, as different leadership styles and approaches, etc., etc. But what I filtered were 3 core characteristics of effective leadership throughout all these definitions. What makes a leader effective is, first of all, having an ethical foundation. By that, I'm not referring to a morally right foundation. I'm referring to a guideline, an ethical principle that guides our actions. That can be either a very altruistic approach, where I'm more than happy to help others in the community. Usually not-for-profit organizations have a very altruistic approach in the way they operate. I can have a very egotistical approach, be for profit and don't care about anyone else but myself, my organization. So we need to be clear that ethical principles are guidelines, desirable ways of interacting, between members within the organization itself and us as an organization with the wider community as well. Because like attracts like, and then you can be effective as an organization. Therefore, you need to have a benchmark of ethical principles and guidelines. The second criteria is that a person in a leadership position should operate authentically. And that implies a high level of self-awareness about your strengths and weaknesses. You need to be able to have your actions in line with your words. Walk the talk, how we like to refer to that, which often appears to be a very big challenge for a lot of people. But behavior that is centered around authenticity helps create relationships based on trust and transparency between individuals. Yeah. From a leadership perspective, very important because it creates higher work commitment for organization members and also mutual understanding and the motivations behind our actions. Only if we know what we're on about. So that's the second pillar. And the third pillar that's characteristic for leadership is charisma. Charisma. And with charisma, I am referring to the way a message is communicated. Charisma is nothing but being able to communicate exceptionally well a vision of an ideal future state. Yeah, it sounds a bit out there, but what I mean by that is if I can tell you that by implementing a collaboration tool, I will save you 5 hours of your 6 hours of administrative work, that's an ideal state of the future. It's like, how can you save me 5 hours of my 6 hours that I do manually? Well, let me help you. So that's the ideal vision of the future. To sum it up, ethical behavior is the foundation stone. The ethical tone is set. Authentic behavior adds more value and credibility to leaders' actions. And then the portion of charisma will then enable all organizational members to see the vision, and that creates commitment as well. Of course, such leadership approaches, like any other approach to management, needs to ensure we're profitable, but that's where we utilize our tools that we have at hand. Now, any transformation and any operational excellence starts with transforming the leader themselves. If you haven't embarked on the journey already and you see some challenges there, anything starts with you. How do you envision yourself? What would you like others to see in order to follow you? Once you establish that, you will understand what drives your employees. Once you understand what drives your employees, you're able to implement certain technologies, for argument's sake, that will help them to then perform in a better way, which overall ends up in organizational excellence. But that can be quite challenging and complex, and oftentimes we don't like to be faced with the truth, as I like to argue with some of my clients. Now, I've got 3 exercises that you can implement. So first of all, to become a more effective leader, you need to have a portion of great self-awareness. How do you do that? Yeah. Simple exercise, pen and paper, old school way. How would you describe yourself? Really strip down characteristics physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, career-wise, spiritually, whatever comes to mind. How would you describe yourself, and be really honest? There is no right or wrong answer. Also have a think about what kind of roles do you play. We all play a role. We play a role at work as the friendly colleague. We play as the loving father with our family. We play as the joker with our friends, whatever that may be. Do you see a pattern? Are you across all roles the same, or are you a bit different? What are 5 of the personal values you consider most important to you, and rank them? Yeah, that's another way to see how aligned are you actually with your values, with your actions. And then write down the most defining experiences in your life and how these shaped who you are today. This will help you to set the benchmark of your personal self. Once we've got that, we have to know the vision. Where do we want to go before we can even talk about a mission and strategic action? Once we know the values, we need to formulate a vision, and we really need to be clear about what kind of culture do we want to breed. Do we want to breed a culture that is aligned with our values? Do we need to change something? The aim is to develop a vision as an overarching strategic goal. That's your overall aim. And then your goal, obviously, is to align your vision with the organization's value that you're creating, the organization itself, and then be effective and drive the mission of a strategic action. It's a very simple exercise. Be clear of the values, your vision, and the culture you want to breed. That will help you determine the direction you're going to go. The last exercise, which is quite simple. Who are your key people? You see this very simple 2x2 matrix. You've got people with influence and you've got people with interest. Now, your task is to put each staff member that you have or want to have in the quadrants. You've got key players that will help you maybe with business development. You need to keep them close. You need to keep them informed. Maybe there's a networking opportunity where you can collaborate with someone. Then you've got key players. You need to meet their needs and keep them satisfied. Maybe it's financial investors that you have. Yeah. Then you've got people you need to show consideration and keep informed. There could be some stakeholders like suppliers that you collaborate with. And then uncertain, investigate closely. Usually that's competitors that you have or your buyers who are out there before you define your target market. So these three simple exercises can actually help you, A, to become very clear about yourself, and B, how you want to further your operational efficiency and what kind of actions do you want to take. Now, to sort of conclude, technology is not a substitute for people. Instead, it's technology's potential to make a workforce more productive. And keep in mind, it's not only the technology that makes a business productive, but how it's utilized. So driving transformation and achieving excellence is much more than that. You need to take into consideration the human factor. And these few points are sort of a guideline what we can do. We need to clearly communicate why change might be needed or how change impacts on us. We need to find champions on the ground that will help us drive the change, because a lot of times people are resistant to change too. Articulate the vision, capture the hearts and minds of others, break down the goals, the achievable ones, celebrate the wins is quite important, and then make change part of the culture. So once that is understood, you've got a roadmap that can help you improve operational efficiency and your workforce capability. But everything begins with leadership.
And thank you, Brad. Thank you for joining us. Great insight on leadership. We really appreciate it. And we know that there's some really great golden nuggets. I love the fact that you talked about self-awareness. That to me is probably one of the biggest pieces that really needed to be defined. But can we do have some time. We do have about 5 minutes for one question, if you don't mind. So I'll just go to the room and ask anyone. Is there a question there for Brad? Let me see. So great presentation, Brad. Everyone loves the presentation. Thank you. It would be great to get a question. Let me see. If not, I definitely have a question for you, but I'll just quickly wait around and see if there's anyone who wants to raise their hands. All right. So please, can you talk about the experiences of when the grid has been implemented? Thank you.
Yeah. I've actually implemented myself when I was engaging in strategy advisory with when was it? Back in RMIT, I worked 2014, 2015, 2016. Yes, we had industry engagements, and the key thing was leading teams of 4 to 5 people for strategy advisory with our engagement partners. Now, here it was quite important to understand the team dynamics within the teams, but also determining who's going to be team leaders, who's going to be the correspondence between the teams and us, the managers, who's going to be the correspondence between gathering data from our engagement partner themselves. So having a team, for argument's sake, of 5 people, and we had probably 10 to 12 teams like that. I needed to ensure to have certain people being the engagement managers, being the communicators to the team, back to the teams themselves, being someone, the admin person who would collate data and make data available for everyone, collaborating on the engagement piece. So that's where I implemented the 2x2 matrix to dedicate roles to certain people. Another example that I did use the 2x2 matrix was working in my past role where I needed to engage with clients, and I had an internal team of solutions architects. So here again, I needed to understand the client and their procurement process, knowing who the people were I engaged with, and internally my team, who's going to be delivering a project, who's going to be the pricing, who's going to respond to a tender, et cetera, et cetera. So there's various applications you can use it and modify it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Brad. And Paul, thank you. Sorry, we had some technical issues there, but thank you for understanding, and I really appreciate that.